Hare Krishna.
Haribol, Tulsi.
Hare Krishna, are you able to see me or hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Mama.
Hare Krishna, is my voice is audible?
Yes, Mama.
Yes.
I can't hear back. Hare Krishna. Tulsi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, Mama.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Okay, so thank you for joining for Everyday Bhagavad Gita class. So we will start for today's discussion. Before that, we'll start with the prayers to our acharyas. Om Ajnanam Timirandasya Jnananjanashalakhaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padkamlam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupa Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam सावधूतं सावधूतं परिजन सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्णा पदान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितं हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते तप्त कांचना गौरंगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभय एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. Before starting, I would like to take the blessings from all of the assembled Vaishnavas here so that I can speak something on the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita as it is. So let me see if I can share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Mama.
Or no? I don't know. I am not able to hear anybody. If anybody is answering, then I can't hear.
Yes, Mama.
Yes, we can.
Let me check. Okay, give me 1 second.
The host is saying increase the volume. Now we cannot see your presentation.
Smart. Hello.
Now, okay, I'm sharing back my screen. Are you able
Hare
to?
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Can you hear now?
Yeah, Prabhu. I can.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll just read. So before reading this, okay, let's read this and then we can discuss. So I think we are on the Bhagavad Gita verse 3.41. We are almost at the end of the chapter of Bhagavad Gita, as it is called Karma Yoga. So let us recite this word. Tasmat tvam indriyani yado
Tasmatvam indrayado.
Indriyani adham.
yama
Namnya Bharatarshaba.
papam prajahi enam
Papmanam
Pamanam
prajahinam.
ज्ञान विज्ञान सहितम
Jnana Vijnana Nisham.
Vijnanashanam.
तस्मात् त्वम् इंद्रियाणि यादो
Tasmatvam
Tasmatvam
indrayado.
indriyanyavado.
नियमावर्तर्षभ
Niyama
Niyamya
Bharatarshaba.
bharatarshava.
पापमानं प्रजह्येनं
Papaman
Papmanam
Prajahinam.
prajahinam.
ज्ञान विज्ञान नाशिनं
Jnanavijnananashanam.
Tasmatvam
इंद्रियाणि यादो
indrayado.
Tasmatvam
नियमावर्तर्षभ
Niyama
Niyamya
Bharatarshaba.
bharatarshava.
पापमानं प्रजह्येनं
Papmanam
Papmanam
Prajahinam.
prajahinam.
ज्ञान विज्ञान नाशिनं
Jnana Vijnana
Jnanavijnananashanam.
Anybody wants to read?
Tasmatvam indriyanyadau.
Tasmatvam indrayado.
Niyamya bharatarshava.
Niyamya Bharatarshaba.
Papmanam prajahinam.
Papamanam
Prajahinam.
Jnana vijnananashanam.
Jnana Vijnana Nasham. Can I go next?
Yes.
Tasmatvam indrayado.
Tasmatvam indriyanyadau.
Niyama Bharatarshaba.
Niyamya bharatarshava.
Papamanam Prajahinam.
Papmanam prajahinam.
Jnana Vijnana Nashanam.
Jnana vijnananashanam.
तस्मात्त्वम् इन्द्रियाणि यद
Tasmatvam indrayado.
Tasmatvam
नियम भरतर्षभ
Niyamya bharatarshava.
पाप नम प्रजाहि हीन एनम
Papmanam prajahinam.
ज्ञान विज्ञान नाशनम
Jnana vijnananashanam.
Tattvam vindriyani adau.
Tasmatvam
इंद्रियाणि
indriyanyadau.
यद
Niyamasya bharatasarasaba.
Niyamya
नियम
bharatarshava.
भरतर्षभ
Papamana prajahi. Yeah. Papamana prajahi. Enam.
Papmanam
प्रजाहि
prajahinam.
हीनम
Enam gnana vijnananashanam.
Jnana
ज्ञान
vijnananashanam.
Okay, so we'll go to word. Tasmat
तस्मात्
Tasmat.
Therefore,
Therefore,
tvam
tam
Tvam
tu
you
indriyani
indrani
indriyani
adoh
adau.
the beginning
in the beginning
niyamaha
Niyama
Niyamya
regulating
regulating.
regulating
Bhartarshaba,
Bharatashaba,
chief amongst the descendants of Bharata.
A
who
chief among the descendants of Bharata.
Papmanam,
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 the great symbol of sin.
the
the
great
the
symbol of
great
sin.
symbol of
sin,
sin.
Jahi,
Prajahi,
Prajahi,
Kar,
Kar,
Kar.
he,
he,
He certainly.
certainly,
Enam,
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 this,
this,
Jnana,
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 knowledge,
of
knowledge,
Jnana,
Vijnana,
no Vijnana,
and scientific knowledge of the pure
scientific
the
knowledge
scientific
of
knowledge of
the
the pure
pure
soul,
soul,
Nashin,
soul,
Nashanam,
notion,
Nashanam,
destroyer.
the
the
destroyer.
destroyer.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curbed this great symbol of sin lust by regulating the senses and slay the destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord advised Arjuna to regulate the senses from the very
But Malochani, you're sounding like a double voice in the back.
Oh, really? But Tulsi is in the other room, Mataji. Oh.
There's like an echo behind your voice. I don't know.
Okay, can everybody go on mute? Let's see if it is coming. Mataji, let me know again. Please mute yourself. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord advised Arjuna to regulate the senses from the very beginning. Is it okay, Mataji, now?
Yes, much better. Yeah.
Okay. So that he could curb the greatest sinful enemy, lust, which destroy the urge for self-realization and specific knowledge of the self. Jnana refers to knowledge of the self as distinguished from non-self, or in the other word, knowledge that the spirit soul is not the body. Vijnana refers to specific knowledge of the spirit soul, constitutional position, and its relationship to the supreme soul. It is explained thus in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.31. Jnanam parama guhyam me yat vijnana samanvitam saresam tadangam cha grahana gaditam maya. The knowledge of the self and the supreme self is very confidential and mysterious, but such knowledge and specific realization can be understood if explained with their various aspects by the Lord himself. Bhagavad Gita gives us that general and specific knowledge of the self. The living entity are part and parcel of the Lord, and therefore they are simply meant to serve the Lord. This consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. So from the very beginning of the life, one has to learn this Krishna consciousness, and therefore one may become fully Krishna conscious and act accordingly. Lust is only the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity. But if one is educated in Krishna consciousness from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. When love of God deteriorate into lust, it is very difficult to return to the normal condition. Nonetheless, Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. So from any stage of life or from the time of understanding its urgency, one can begin regulating the senses in Krishna consciousness. Devotional service of the Lord and turn the lust into love of God at the highest perfectional stage of human life. I'm so sorry for my reading. My eyes are still blurry. I had my eyes dilated, so please forgive me. So, so today we are reading from third chapter, 41 verse. Does anybody remember what happened before this so far? Like if you go here, I'll just stop share. Does anybody remember what happened so far? What question did Arjuna ask and why the Lord is saying about the lust? So that we know what happened. Okay. So what happened, right? What did Arjuna ask? Nobody remembers what happened so far? Okay. So what happened in text 36 of the third chapter is Arjuna asked a question to Krishna. He said that why is it, what is it that which impel you to act sinful, you know. Sometimes we know this is not correct, but then also we are being dragged to do that certain activities, or all of us have some experience, and even though we are not we don't want to do, but we are forcefully, helplessly acting. So what is that thing which is dragging us to act unwillingly, you know, and then we are as if we are engaged by force, you know, we are forcefully someone is engaging us to that activity. So Krishna says that kamayesha krodesha rajaguna samudbhava. So Krishna says that it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of the contact of the material modes of passion. And you know what happened in the second chapter, we have read that when the kama is not fulfilled, it turns to wrath, and when it is fulfilled, it turns to krodha, right? I'm sorry, turn to greed. So can anybody know here, when Krishna says the lust, what does that exactly means? Is it the lust just between the mode of passion between a like a opposite gender, or is it more than that? Do you have any understanding from the previous classes?
It's more than that.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. Yes, it is more than that, because in Bhagavad Gita, in Chaitanya Chaitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, and Kaviraj writes his definition, that what is the difference between the kama and prema. So kama is when we try to satisfy our own senses, atma, indriya, priti, tar bale kam. And I think Krishna's when you said try to, I don't remember the exact words, but this is just 2 lines words where it says that when you try to satisfy atma indriya, your own senses, that is called lust. And when you try to satisfy the senses of the Lord Krishna, tar bale tar dhare prem nam, so that is when we call it as a love. So basically lust is everything, not only as most of us before reading Bhagavad Gita, I'm sure that most of us might have this experience, that when we say the lust, then we basically think about the affair between a opposite gender, but it is not that, it is more than that. So when we are trying to satisfy our own senses, that is called lust. And when and it can be anything, right? Any material desire, you could say. If we have so many material desire, and let's say some of them are fulfilled and some of them are not fulfilled, so when our material desires are not fulfilled, then we might get into the krodha. Or if some of our material desires are fulfilled, so we'll be getting encouraged, and we'll be thinking, oh, let me do more, let me do more. So then it turns into greed, and there is no end of this cycle. Then then we'll be not able to engage in the service of the Lord, and we will be running behind this lust, trying to satisfy our own senses, because material desires have no ends, we all know. So Krishna also talks about that how this definitely lust is there. So how this lust, he's talk about the different degrees. Does anybody remember what example Krishna gives there, the different degrees of the lust? Three example has been given specifically, and I think Prabhuji has covered this verse as well. So Krishna says that as fire is covered by smoke, mirror is covered by dust, and embryo is covered by the womb. If you think that all these example, the degree of the covering is more. So embryo, when covered in the womb, nobody is able to see, right? And fire is covered by smoke, but still the fire can be seen. So basically these are the different degree of the covering of the lust, and the human being are considered an example of fire covered by smoke. They are also covered by the lust, but if they try to revive their relationship with the Lord, when they try to curb this lust, then they are easily able to overcome this, and they have the higher intelligence also that we have discussed. So I'm not going into detail, just a summary what we have done so far. And then so Krishna says that even the wise living entities, that living entity is covered by this eternal enemy. And it has also been explained why this is an eternal enemy, because this lust will keep you bind in this material world from lifetime after lifetime. So if we consider that there is some enemy, let's say I consider I am Padma Lushini and my enemy is a person X or Y, so that person can kill me maximum maximum harm that person can kill me is like they can kill me, like they can kill me in this body, but I mean, soul can never be killed, but this physical form they can harm. But this eternal enemy is the lust. Why? Because it will keep you bind eternally in this material world, because you're not gonna come out, not doing the service of the Lord, and then not going to get the liberation from the cycle of the birth and death. And we are just rotating around 8,400,000 species of life in the material world. So then Krishna, in the last word yesterday, what we have covered so far is Krishna has talked about, so the enemy, right? Now you want to find out what are the places. So let's say if you know that there are some enemy living in this building, but you don't want to harm everybody, you want to just harm your enemy, so you should know in which apartment exactly they are living, so that you can take necessary action. So similarly here Krishna also says, and does anybody remember what are the places where this lust sit? Yesterday only we covered this verse. What are the places where this lust lives?
In the heart.
No.
Senses, mind, and intelligence, right?
Yes, Mataji, you are right. So senses, mind, and intelligence are the places where this lust lives. So these are the three places: senses, mind, and intelligence are the sitting places of the lust, and they thus cover the living entity, and they bewildered him, they keep him bound in the material in this material world. So what happened now in this verse, what Krishna is saying, Krishna is giving the formula how you can control over this lust. So from the beginning, so what does Krishna says? From the beginning, we have to, whenever we know that there is some lust, there is some material desire coming in across our mind and senses, we are trying to acquire that, then we have to curb this enemy. So I'll just take an example. I think you all might have that experience of, if you have some wound in your hand or somewhere, so what you try to do, you try to scratch, right? There is some infection, but you have some itching sensation. So what you do, you just don't think, right? And I can relate it these days so much, because the spring allergy make me even without my noticing, my hand goes in my eyes and I just rub, and 10-15 minutes after that I realize that I make it worsen, because my eyes will be all red. And then I'll see that, oh, I should have at least I should have not done it at first place. So similarly happened that in the wound, we try to itch, right? And then we feel some relaxation, and we think that itching is the doing the itching from the other hand is the a solution for this wound. But what we do, after 5-10 minutes, we realize we itch 5 times, 6 times, and then we realize we are making this wound worse, because it pains you, some sensation of relaxation, but eventually it is going to increase by the itching. So similarly our material desire is, so what is the solution for the material desire is, when the material desire comes, then we have to curb it in the starting. So we don't even, like, we don't have to itch it. What is the solution? We have to at least take some medication, but not doing this itching, trying to satisfy that. So here also material desire is gonna come, because we are in the material world, we are in this material body, we are living in this material world. Then for most of us, we are not a pure devotee of the Lord. So what's going to happen? The material desire are going to come in our life, in our mind, but we have to curb that. When we are sensing that, okay, this is a desire, and how do you define that? If there's some desire takes you away from Krishna consciousness, takes you away from your bhakti, your sadhana, then that's definitely you can consider is that a material desire. First, what happens, right? We comes under the trap when we have some material desire. Let's say we have 5 material desire, and we think, at least let me try to full 1 material desire. So we just try to work for that material desire. But what happens, in due course of filling that 1 material desire, we might get more material desire. So we are just entangled fulfilling our material desire. So Krishna is saying, control your senses. So control your senses means, what happened when senses are come in contact with the sense object, then our mind and intelligence also is, we are feeding. So if I give you the example of, let's say if you are eating rasgulla, so if you think in the mind, then you're not having the rasgulla, right? You're just thinking that you are having the rasgulla. But as soon as your sense of your tongue comes in contact with the sense object, that is in this case is rasgulla or anything like that, senses come to the sense object. We have 5 senses and 5 sense object related to that senses. So then it comes into your tongue and then you feel, and then your mind also get the, okay, let me have more. So basically what is the solution is, we have to keep our senses away from the sense object. So out of, basically what happens, mind creates an impression of what the things we do. So let's say, and you can also think about this example, maybe earlier all of us might be going to a movie maybe some years back. So what happens, you go and you sit there for the 3 hours, you watch the movie and then you come out. So if you have noticed that you will have those impression in your mind fresh for some time, right? So then our mind and intelligence also, we are feeding with that kind of scenes of the Bollywood picture we have come in contact with. So our senses need to be out of sight from the sense object. So that's how we are able to curb. So here we have to notice in the next verse, Krishna will say the sequence, which is more intelligent. But here Krishna doesn't say control your mind and control your intelligence first, because if you remember, I think in the 6th chapter, Arjuna says that controlling the mind is, I cannot do, what to speak of ours, all of us. Arjuna is so great warrior, and he says that I can control the wind, but I cannot control the mind, because mind is very difficult to control. So Krishna here speaks about, Krishna doesn't say that you control the mind first. Krishna says control the senses. So at least we have to control our senses, keep them aside from the sense object, and then we have to then our mind and intelligence, they are getting their food from, because mind and intelligence comes as a part of the subtle body. So subtle body is experiencing the taste of the sense object through the gross senses, right? We have these gross senses. So how our mind and intelligence is getting feed, they are getting feed from our gross body. So our senses are feeding. So here we have to starve the mind and intelligence by these thoughts. When we curb the senses, when we keep away the senses from the sense object, initially we have to do that, and then Krishna says that then you are able to curb this great enemy in the form of the lust. And also Prabhupada talks about that as Prahlad Maharaj also says, right, you have to start from the Kamara Ashrat Pragya Dharma Bhagavatam Iha Durlabha Manusham Janma Arthadam Anityam Dhiraha. So he says that you have to start from the very beginning, Kamara, at early age, and then you do this Bhagavad Dharma, because this is very good to start at early age. But Prabhupada also marks the point there. Prabhupada says that even Krishna consciousness and Bhakti Yoga is so powerful, even it is for the late beginner also, it gives a perfect result. And we see all the good examples. And Prabhupada, when he came here, he made all these devotees, they were not at their childhood, they were at their young age, but he was able to convince them, and they were able to, they are now, you see, they are all the pure devotee of the Lord, because they have practiced, and how, so these controlling the sense away from the sense object, we have this 4 regulative principle to follow. So no illicit sex, no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication. So why these 4 regulative principles are there? Because this will keep away our senses from the sense object. When we try to follow this principle, we are purifying our life. By purifying our life, we are coming close to the all purified Lord Krishna. And then we can develop our love to Krishna. Then we can try to satisfy the love for Krishna. So basically what happens when we engage our mind, our senses, so Bhakti Yoga basically is the solution. Why? Because what's happening is, in the end of the chapter, Krishna, you will see that how is it happening, your senses, right? So you have your hand, with your hand what you do. So if I just say you simply just sit down, that's not possible. So with the hand, we give you some good engagement, like like make some flower garden for the Lord, make bhoga for the Lord and the devotees, or clean the temple, right? Some this kind of engagement, practical applications. So then our senses have this positive engagement. Then our senses, gross senses, are controlled. Whenever gross senses are controlled, and our mind also have a good engagement of chanting Hare Krishna. When we are chanting, we are try to concentrate our mind on the holy name of the Lord, and with their intelligence. So what we have to do, who is called an intelligent person? A person who is engaged in the material activity and trying to improve his material situation. Do you think he or she is a material, she is a person with a higher intelligence? No, because the intelligent person is the one who try to get himself free from this entanglement. Because why I have to struggle for all these things? Because we are in the material world. So intelligence, great purpose is, intelligence is given to us so that we can solve the problem of the human form of life, and we can solve the problem of the material life. The root cause is the birth, death, old age, and disease. So we are there in this life, that we have to solve. So by our intelligence, if we try to entangle ourselves more and more into material activity, thinking, let me do this, let me do that, let me do this, and then we just push away Krishna consciousness, even though we know sometimes the person, they doesn't know, but sometimes we know, then also we try to, push away Krishna consciousness and try to progress. So what's going to happen? We are using our intelligence, but not in a proper way. In a proper way means to free ourselves from this birth, death, old age, and disease. So we have to make progress toward that. So I think this is what Krishna is discussed in this verse. Does anybody have anything to say? So that if not, then we'll go to the other verse. But if yes, then we'll take that comment. Okay, if not, then we can, I think.
I have one comment.
Okay.
That I like the example of the Rasguna and the enemy.
Okay, thank you, Tulsi. So let me quickly share. I think we can do one more verse here. Let me see what Prabhupada is saying here. Okay, so I'll just read it once. You can repeat after me in the interest of Indriyani Paraniya
India Pranya
Indriya Bhe Param Mana
India paper
Sastu Para Buddhir Yo Buddha Parastastu Saha Indriyani senses
Senses.
Parani superior Aho said India Bhe more than the senses
India
More than the senses.
Param superior
Param superior.
Manaha the mind
Manaha the mind.
Manasaha more than the mind
Manasaha the mind.
The mind.
Tu also
Two also.
Paraha superior
Para superior.
Buddhi intelligence
Buddhi intelligence.
Yahu
Who
Buddhi more than the intelligence
Buddhi intelligence.
here Tu par Saha he I would request everyone can go on mute so that the echo doesn't come. I'll read the translation and Prabhupada. Translation: the working senses is superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses, and intelligence is.
I can see a echo.
Okay. Everyone, please go on mute. And the soul is even higher than the intelligence. So here in this verse, actually, Krishna talks about the hierarchy. What is more powerful? Who is in the hierarchy? Okay. So, purport by Srila Prabhupada, the senses are different outlet for the activities of lust. Lust is reserved within the body, but it is given vent through the senses. Therefore, the senses are superior to the body as a whole. These outlets are not in use when there is superior consciousness or Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, the soul makes direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the hierarchy of bodily function, as described here, ultimately ends in the Supreme Soul. Bodily action means the function of the senses, and stopping the senses means stopping all bodily action. But since the mind is active, then even though the body may be silent and at rest, the mind will act. Does anybody know when that happens? When this condition comes? Okay. So if you see here, as it does during the dreaming, we all have a dreaming experience. Our body is not active, but our mind is active. But above the mind is the determination of the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul proper. If therefore the soul is directly engaged with the supreme, naturally all other subordinate, namely the intelligence, mind, senses, will be automatically engaged. In Katha Upanishad, there is a similar passage in which it is said that the object of sense gratifications are superior to the senses. Mind is superior to the sense object. If therefore the mind is directly engaged in the service of the Lord constantly, then there is no chance that the senses will become engaged in another way. This mental attitude has explained. Param drishtva nivartate. If the mind is engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no chance of its being engaged in the lower propensities. In the Katha Upanishad, the soul has been described as Mahan, the great. Therefore, the soul is above all, namely the sense object, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. Therefore, directly understanding the constitutional position of the soul is the solution of the whole problem. With intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul and then engage the mind always in Krishna consciousness. That solves the whole problem. A neophyte spiritualist is generally advised to keep aloof from the object of the senses. But aside from that, one has to strengthen the mind by use of intelligence. If by intelligence one engages one's mind in Krishna consciousness by complete surrender onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then automatically the mind becomes stronger. And even though the senses are very strong like serpent, they will be no more effective than serpents with broken fangs. But even though the soul is the master of the intelligence and the mind and the senses also, still unless it is strengthened by the association with Krishna in Krishna consciousness, there is every chance of falling down due to agitated mind. So, as very evident from the purport, Prabhupada explains so beautifully here. Well, here, if you see the last verse, what we have discussed so far is we have to curb these senses, right? Curb these senses so that it doesn't become attached to the sense object, and we doesn't go mad after this lust, right? Satisfying our own material desires, satisfying our own senses. So what happens here is here Krishna talks about the hierarchy. So Krishna says that the soul is, what does Krishna says? Is the soul is the lowest or soul is the highest? We just read it. Soul is higher in the hierarchy or soul is the lower in the hierarchy?
Soul is the highest.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. Soul is the highest. Lower than soul is the mind, and lower than, in the intelligence, then the mind, and then the senses. Because these senses are just the dull matter, right? We have the senses. We see the body which is out of. We say somebody expires, we see that body, that all the senses are there, but why they cannot work? Because the senses are the dull matter. It's just a matter that Krishna also talks about in Bhagavad Gita only, I think 7th chapter. He talks about the two kind of energy. One is the inferior energy, and other is the superior energy. Does anybody remember what is inferior energy and what is the superior energy?
Mahamaya is one.
No. So inferior energy is Prakriti and superior energy is the living entity Jiva. So Jiva is a superior energy, even because why Jiva is a superior energy? Because it is higher than the dull matter, because matter cannot do much without the Jiva or the superior energy. Okay. So here Prabhupada very nicely explained that the lust is reserved within our body as a mind, intelligence and the senses. And I have also talked about in the last verse that through the gross senses we are feeding our mind and intelligence also, because we are creating the impression of what we do with our gross senses. We are creating those impression in our mind. You also think that we also dream of the things most of the time, what we are what we have done, or what we have done, or what we are thinking to do. That kind of thing come in the dream. And even though if our senses are not in work, our mind works, right? Our mind make a body, all of us have this experience. Our mind make the some form of our body, and we don't even aware that we are lying on our bed. We think we are with this person or that person, or we are in India, or we are in America, or any place, you just get so many dreams. So then that's why Prabhupada is saying, even when the senses are on, mind is more active, because mind is higher than the senses, and higher than the mind is intelligence, because intelligence can take the proper decision. So Prabhupada says that the similar passage is found in one of the Upanishad, that is called the Katha Upanishad, that, we don't have to think that the senses are higher. The senses are not higher, but senses are just the outlets by which we are executing. So Prabhupada is saying, let's say if I'm thinking about my mind, about some sense gratification, so then that thought also need to be curbed. So when that thought comes, then we have to curb that thought. We don't have to create it into the action. So when we create it into action, then it is called engaging in the lusty activities. So here the hierarchy has been cleared. And then also Prabhupada says that for the neophyte, we are saying that you keep away the senses from the sense object. Usually, if there are no restrictions, let's say no restriction of these 4 principles, then we'll be engaging in all kind of activities. But Prabhupada also says that sense gratification and Krishna consciousness and easygoing life go ill together. So they both don't go together. So if we want to do sense gratification, then we cannot progress in our spiritual life or Krishna consciousness. But if we want to progress in our spiritual life, then we have to follow the regulative principle niyama, and then we have to also do like the chanting has been prescribed to us, so that we are keep focusing on Krishna. So basically chanting, why we do chanting? To keep meditating on Krishna. Because basically actually our natural position is to get attracted to Krishna. So who does anybody remember who says that our natural position is to get attracted to Krishna? Anybody remember from the scripture? One person says that our natural position is to get attracted to Krishna. Okay, so if we go to the very beautiful canto 7th of Srimad Bhagavatam, there, Prahlad Maharaj speaks this very nice verse. I'll read just the translation. O Brahmana, teachers, as iron attracted by a magnetic stone moves automatically toward the magnet. So do we do anything? A magnetic stone is directly getting attracted to the iron. My consciousness, who is saying this verse? Anybody guessed so far? My consciousness, having been changed by his will, is attracted by Lord Vishnu, who carries a disc in his hand. Thus, I have no independence. Who is saying this verse?
You said Prahlad Maharaj, right?
Yes, Mataji. Prahlad Maharaj, because I always mentioned that it is from the 7th canto. Yes, Prahlad Maharaj speaks about this verse. So our natural position is to get attracted towards Krishna. But for us, what is there? Because we are trying to engage our lusty propensities, so we are not getting attracted to Krishna. Because I have already mentioned that sense gratification and Krishna consciousness doesn't go well with each other. So we have to take one path. So here, what happens? The background is Prahlad Maharaj, as we know, he go to Kurukul, and then one day his father calls him, and he says, "Okay, like 5-year-old child, right? Very affectionate. Hiranyakashipu was very affectionate towards Prahlad Maharaj. He was his child, so and like the I think the younger child, and he was very affectionate to him. And he says that, what did you learn, my child, in the school? Like all of us has experience. We usually ask our children if they go to the school. So Prahlad Maharaj says a very very beautiful verse. Tat sadhu manne asuryavarya tehinam sada samudvigna diham asatrat hitvatnapatam grahandakupam manam gato yad thari mashrita. So Prahlad Maharaj speaks, and we know that Hiranyakashipu considered Lord Vishnu as his enemy, since Lord Vishnu has killed his brother Hiranyaksha in the form of Varadev. So he considers him as his greatest enemy. Here is his own son, Hiranyakashipu was so powerful. We all know that Hiranyakashipu, all these demigods used to fear him, all but for these three deities, Vishnu, Brahma and Shiva. So Prahlad Maharaj says, so best of the asuras, king of the demon. As far as I have learned from his spiritual master, any person who has accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in a dark well. So this this Grahamedi life, or this life of householder, Prahlad Maharaj speaks this, says that whoever consider this temporary household life as all in all, that he is certainly embarrassed by all type of anxieties because he has fallen in the andakupam. He used this word. Andakupam means fallen into a dark well. So when somebody fallen into a dark well, no help is from outside, and there is this whole dark well, and that person cannot come out, where there is no water but only suffering. So Prahlad Maharaj clearly mentioned that there is all sufferings. One should give up this position and go to the forest, vana. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavan. Prabhupada says in the translation, more clearly, one should go to Vrindavan, where Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and should thus take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prahlad Maharaj says basically to his father, and he also speaks that you are also, basically he's trying to preach him that you are also in this Andakupam, and you do not understand the real goal of your life. And then, you are definitely being baffled by this material nature. So that's happened because Hiranya means gold, and Kashipu means soft bed. So Hiranya, gold means he likes a lot of material wealth, and Kashipu means a soft bed, means basically a sense gratification. So he was a number one demon, and Asur means who doesn't. Even though they are powerful, why we do not praise Hiranyakashipu? Because he is averse to the devotional service of Lord Vishnu. Even though he's very very powerful, right? We cannot we cannot even think of executing what Hiranyakashipu has done. The 36,000 year penances, austerities, but his heart is not clear because he did not do it for the Paramatma or the Lord Vishnu. He just did it just to get more powerful strength so that nobody can kill him. But that is not possible because we are in the material world, so nobody is free from the birth, death, and old age and disease. But where that is possible, then we acquire our spiritual body. But acquiring a spiritual body, we have to purify our existence. Once we purify our senses by engaging in the service of the Lord, then we can understand Krishna, right? With the material senses, we say that we cannot understand Krishna. So once we purify our senses, then when we are slowly able to understand Krishna, and then once we have perfected our life in service to Krishna, remembering Krishna, engaging in service, then we will be able to go back home, back to Godhead, and serve the Lord there. Actually, I forgot to got those verses out, but a very beautiful verse actually. Lord Krishna says to Uddhava in Uddhav Gita in 11th canto. He says that the person who is engaging in my service, After leaving, clearly the Lord says he will achieve my spiritual abode. Like that, the clearly the Lord says. Even in Bhagavad Gita also Lord speaks, but in Bhagavatam, in Adhav Gita also Lord speaks about that. So here in this words, in 42 words, this has been mentioned. Prabhupada says that if we think that, if you are so intelligent, even though getting so many instruction, how we are progressing, right? But Prabhupada says that even if the person is most intelligent, he will think that he doesn't have to, we doesn't have to ask him to not contact the sense with the sense object, because he is with the intelligence is residing and the mind is fixing on the higher purpose, and then automatically he is not engaging in the sex, so in the sense gratification activity. So automatically his senses are getting controlled. So basically the whole point of all this, speaking all these verses, in the last verse Krishna will speak about all this bhakti yoga. So the best method is always engage our senses in the service of the Lord. When we engage in the service of the Lord, then we do not have any other engagement, like that higher. If I give you khichdi or 2 days old, and I have made some nice prasadam today, so without any thinking, your intelligence will pick the fresh food, right? The food which has just freshly prepared. Similarly, when we engage our senses in Krishna consciousness, our senses get positive engagement plus a higher taste. So when higher taste comes, this lower taste automatically goes down. यही शंस स्पर्शना भोगा दुख योगना एवते आदि अंत tu kala. I'm just forgetting the words. Na teshu ramate buddha. See, I'm forgetting a lot of verses. So na teshu ramate buddha means, because when we try to engage our sense with the sense object, we think that it is an enjoyment, but that is particular enjoyment is the greatest enemy of our senses. So the wise living entity does a na teshu ramate buddha. They do not, ramate means they do not take pleasure by contacting their senses with the sense object, because they are the womb of the miseries. So basically a womb will produce a child. Similarly, this womb of this so-called happiness will produce a lot of misery. So whoever is a living entity, they do not take pleasure of attaching their senses with the sense object. So I would like to take a pause and see if there are any comments on these questions. We covered 2 verses so far. Anyone would like to correct any corrections, any questions, realizations? They can share now.
I liked your statement that sense gratification and an easygoing life doesn't go well, it goes ill with Krishna consciousness.
I think Mataji, someone can correct me if I'm not sure, but I think Prabhupada writes it in some of the purport, one of the purport of
Yeah, I think I've heard and read that before, but that must be the problem with my Krishna consciousness.
so seriously.
Sense gratification and wanting an easygoing life.
Prabhupada speaks a lot of things. Actually, if nobody has anything to share, I'll just share one of the things. So Prabhupada, I think when he was in India, he was in Chennai, and there is they were staying near nice to this beach. So Prabhupada always used to go, and he used to tell his disciple, let's all go take bath in the sea, like in the ocean, like that. So one of the disciple, I think his name was Nandakumara. So he says that, Prabhupada, I did not understand, because the spiritual master, he engages the disciple, right? Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nitya Namnam Shingara Tanmandir Marjanado. So the spiritual master engages his disciple in the service of Krishna, right? So this disciple got some doubt. So he was thinking, why Prabhupada is saying that, okay, go to the beach, take in the ocean, take nice bath. Then he got some doubt, means not on Prabhupada. He got some doubt then how we are engaging in Krishna consciousness activity, right? So I like this point very much when I was reading. So there, this person is writing about Prabhupada, that when I asked it, so what did Prabhupada reply? Does anybody guess what did Prabhupada reply to that? Because he was thinking they're going to the beach, they're enjoying this nice bath in the beach, hot sun. So does anybody guess what might have Prabhupada said? Okay, so Prabhupada says that, do you know who is Krishna? So like this, and then Prabhupada says, like he questions and then he answers that, that Krishna, sun is the energy of Krishna, so the light in the sun is Krishna. Because this disciple says that, actually he says, the hot sun is there, so my body feel good. And then when I go to the nice cold water, then the sensation of the body, he feels very good. So he is thinking that how am I supposed to understand that I'm engaging in Krishna consciousness? That is nothing to practice for all of us, just a pastime I'm sharing from Prabhupada Lilamrita. So then Prabhupada said that Krishna is the light of the sun, and Krishna is also the taste of the water. So why can't you remember Krishna? You are between Krishna, right? You're all the water and nice hot sun. So why can't you remember Krishna? So Rasam Apsu Kanteya Prabhashmi Sasishuraya Pranava Sarva Vedeshu Shabdake Parusham Nishu. So Krishna says in this words, I think 7th chapter. So he says that Rasoham Apsu Kanteya, taste of the water, and Prabhashmi Shashi Surya. So I'm the light in the sun and the moon. So that's what Prabhupada replied. So that doubt got clear, that but you don't have to enjoy and say, okay, we are, that consciousness should be there, that even Prabhupada goes that he had that consciousness, I'm engaging in Krishna's service, even though I'm taking a bath, engaging in Krishna's service. But I just wanted to share that pastime. I got into my mind. So if not, then we are going to stop for today, and I'll see if Malti Priya Mataji is here. Ganpati Govind Prabhu, is Mataji here? I don't see her name.
Yeah, looks like Mataji did not join.
Okay. So what you got?
Right. Did she have some announcement?
It's her birthday today.
Oh.
So we were thinking of singing a birthday song to Mataji.
Maybe that's why she didn't join.
Yeah. We'll have to sing it to her picture now. Okay.
So I think Mataji did not join, so we cannot sing the song, but we can end it. It's almost 8, so we can end it here. We'll offer Vaishnav Pranam. Vancha kalpatarubhya
पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमः अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna.
Padmalochani Mataji ki jai.
जय।